Okay. Okay. Well, thanks. We are recording this so that we can put it out on our LCTV as well as on our web for anyone that can't catch this. So, for everyone in attendance, again, Joe Layton, I'm the assistant town administrator, joined with Martin Duell, our town planner, and Charles Craig with Beta Group, and he's going to give a presentation as far as where we are with the final draft of the report that will be submitted to DHCD, but also provide some background on what this exercise was, a brief summary as far as our July public session, and then run through some of the recommendations. So, Charles, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Joe and Marin, and I apologize for the lateness. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you all for joining. This is the final presentation about the LRRP, Local Rapid Recovery Plan, for the impacts of COVID-19. We're going to go over some project recommendations and a little bit of background tonight for Littleton, Massachusetts, and our study area is Littleton Common. Tonight's meeting, we've really already done introductions. My name's Charles Cray. I'm with Beta Group, and you know who Joe and Marin are. The project team includes myself and Jeff Max Tudis from Beta Group, who had a conflict, as well as a number of others we've been working with. And we'll talk about the schedule and goals, the study area, quick recap of the last meeting, and really the bulk of this will discuss the recommended projects. We will have time for public comment and Q&A, which I'm excited for, and get into next steps. The LRRP, or Local Rapid Recovery Plan, includes 3 phases. Phase 1 is the diagnostic and business surveys. Phase 1 is complete, and we collected baseline diagnostic data, did some demographic analysis as well, engaged stakeholders to understand COVID impacts and district concerns, and we basically did an overview of on-the-ground conditions within the study area, vacancies, what kind of businesses were open, things like that. Also, phase 2 is complete, the recommendations part, or I should say almost complete. The recommendations include consulting key stakeholders on different projects and establishing priority projects, refining the sort of scope and design of projects with subject matter experts, developing a final list of projects for review by the town, and phase 3 is the plan, which is due on Friday of this week, October 8th. So we've circulated a draft of the Local Rapid Recovery Plan. We've gathered community feedback on recommendations, which I know we'll do some more of tonight, and we'll finalize that plan and get it out the door on Friday. The study area is the shaded parcels that you can see in this map. Those parcels were included in both the demographic analysis as well as the field analysis. We tallied up each of the businesses that were open or closed or the vacant buildings in that area as part of this program. We spoke with a few proprietors, store owners, employees while conducting field analysis, took lots of photographs, and made a pretty robust spreadsheet of what we found as a requirement from Department of Housing and Community Development as we started this process. In July, we had our phase 1 LRRP public presentation that was in person in Littleton. We talked about the program, the schedule, the goals, the study area, and we really got into the meat and potatoes, the existing conditions, the diagnostics, and the business surveys. The diagnostics includes that demographic analysis I alluded to earlier, and the business surveys were released. These were developed by DHCD and distributed and filled out by individual store or building owners. We had a pretty good turnout from that survey, and from that survey we were able to generate some project recommendations as well as understand some of the important existing conditions chapters of the report. A couple of key takeaways. Some of the business surveys respondents were dissatisfied with public streets, spaces, and sidewalks, as well as storefronts and signs. and they thought that some of the more important elements were the need of streetscape, sidewalk, seating, and public space improvements. And we took many public comments, which were recorded and analyzed as we developed additional recommendations. So to get into the recommended projects, Littleton has been deemed a mid-sized community, and mid-sized communities have a requirement to have a minimum of 10 projects. I anticipate by the end of this discussion, we may have 11, or who knows, we may have 12, but these are the 10 recommended projects thus far. Number 1 is to engage building owners to make facade and building renovations. Number 2 is wayfinding signage along Great Road and area rail trails. Number 3 is general streetscape improvements. Number 4 is to host additional events on the town common. Number 5 is to hire an economic development director. Number 6 is to complete construction of the Cooper Wellington Trail. Number 7 is redesign the intersection of Goldsmith Street at Stevens Street. 8 is to determine the highest and best use of 12 Robinson Road. 9 is to develop additional outdoor dining opportunities. And 10, conduct analysis to fund construction of town sewer infrastructure. The next 10 or so slides are going to give a little more detail on each project. Project 1 is engage building owners to make facade and building renovations. Observations from field analysis and from business surveys include a pretty strong desire to update and upgrade storefront facade conditions. There are many storefront facade revitalization programs out there. Many of them are very successful, and we think that it's a great opportunity for Littleton businesses. Recommendations include to develop design guidelines, develop criteria, and application for approval, identify components of renovations and the facades program, and to identify funding opportunities. I didn't want to call out any individual businesses by name. However, I did see that these windows were non-transparent, and any design guidelines that would recommend an upgrade to a facade program would specifically recommend transparency, typically above 70% for a facade program. So this is just an example photo that we took during field analysis to show transparency closer to 0 on these storefront windows. Transparency is great for a sense of place, placemaking, letting people know that businesses are open and being able to see both inside and outside. Project recommendation number 2 is wayfinding along Great Road and area rail trails. Observations include that around Littleton, around Littleton Common, signage would reinforce the area as a commercial district that is open for business. We did notice during field analysis a lot of motor vehicle traffic that didn't have the need to stop in Littleton. And we thought that some of that might be because some folks don't know what businesses are available. Recommendations include developing a brand for the common, generation of a wayfinding family signage, solicit public feedback and input, and of course, potentially utilize ARPA or American Rescue Plan Act money for sign installation. We were able to confirm that ARPA money could be used for a similar program. These 2 photos just show some existing signage that's in Littleton over there on Stevens Street and along Great Road or Route 2A, a long stretch without signage that might be a good candidate for some additional wayfinding signage. This is a very rough draft, sort of a mock-up that we did internally to explore some of the signage that you would see more pedestrian or bicycle oriented. We anticipate something along these lines, not necessarily this wording or text or format, but something like this going into an area rail trail or walking path to let folks know where they can go to downtown Littleton and be part of the commerce landscape. Project number 3 is a little bit broad. There's a lot more detail in the report, and the title is Multiple Streetscape Improvements. We get into sidewalks, placemaking, crosswalks, as well as bike lanes and bike parking. So this is kind of an all-encompassing project. Observations include that developing these things, especially placemaking and comfortable sidewalks, will encourage pedestrian activity and increase foot traffic. Recommendations include to basically conduct a study. This could be done in-house or externally to identify priority locations. The reason that's important is once you have a priority list, then you have a list of how you can tackle each infrastructure element when funding becomes available. To coordinate with property owners and the public, to coordinate with MassDOT, Route 2A and area roads are owned by MassDOT, to improve safety at crosswalks, and possibly including flashing beacons or rapid rectangular flashing beacons, and to identify costs and funding. Again, we have a Stevens Street photo and a First Baptist Church parking lot photo that just identifies a couple of opportunities to really enliven the streetscape, make some really beautiful sidewalks and some comfortable facilities for folks. Project number 4 is to host additional events on the town common. Observations include hosting events on the common will drive much needed foot traffic to local businesses. And this was especially robust recommendation promoted or suggested by Great Road business owners as part of that phase 1 business survey. Recommendations include to identify different event types, to work with local groups, to plan and implement events, especially the Littleton Cultural Council, and to include elements like ethnic festivals, outdoor music concert series, and other public art. We also just want to acknowledge on this slide that the events that are taking place at Fay Park today are very successful and that they are at Fay for a reason, and that there might be an opportunity for smaller events on the common. Perhaps there'd be an opportunity for a weekend morning event and maybe closing Stevens Street to allow for safe parking and access on foot would be popular. That's something that we can't boil down to the nitty gritty in this study, but we would recommend a future study look at. Number 5 is to hire an economic development director. Hiring a staff person to administer COVID-19 relief funds would allow for the funds to be spent quickly. That would directly benefit the various recipients of the funds. This photo is Charlie Baker, and it's only here as a reminder that he is spending ARPA money across the state, many hospitals, many training programs, close to 200 million as of late, and that there is more ARPA money coming to towns and cities across the state, and that it would be wise to spend it quickly. Recommendations include to utilize ARPA money for a position like this, to develop the requirements and post the job opening, and to develop a list of prioritized projects for the new director to begin working on after that person would be hired. Number 6 is to complete the construction of the Cooper Wellington Trail. This is the Cooper Trail shown in yellow here. The Wellington Trail abuts it. This trail would allow folks to travel by foot and by bicycle to Great Road, connecting a rather densely populated area with shops. Recommendations include to examine portions for paving versus stone dust surface, to work with mass trails, to continue to secure funding for the trail, and to continue momentum generated from the town-approved bridge over the stream along the trail, the recently town-approved bridge, and of course to include wayfinding signage in the scope of work. The area rail trail wayfinding signage recommendation from earlier could apply to this project as well. Number 7, redesign the intersection of Goldsmith at Stevens Street. Simplifying this intersection and its movements, reducing the curb radius, reducing the crossing distances would create a sense of place and increase comfort for all modes. Recommendations include to conduct an in-house redesign or retain an expert in the field, a consultant, to aid in the redesign of this intersection. Work with stakeholders and local businesses and the public to flesh out the design and ensure pedestrian and bicycle facilities are very thoughtfully integrated. This is a rough draft concept level graphic that you see on the screen here. It really tightens the curb radius and it extends the stop bar for that left turn off of Goldsmith. It creates a little bit of green space and it has a through bicycle lane. This is just a conversation starter. We don't want to use this for the final design. However, you can see from the way the lines are drawn and the aerial in the background, how much pavement could be reclaimed and how much green space or place space could be generated from this project or a similar project. Project number 8 is to determine the highest and best use of 12 Robinson Road. Observations. A thoughtful redevelopment of this historic property could drive additional foot traffic to downtown businesses. Recommendations: to study in-house or retain an expert to study the market dynamics and potential uses of this property. To work with stakeholders, local businesses, and the public to seek input on the planning process. And to register the building with the Historic Commission if that's required. Those are some high-level recommendations for Project 8. Project 9 is to develop additional outdoor dining opportunities. Outdoor dining allows those who aren't yet comfortable eating indoors to enjoy a restaurant meal and increases sales and revenues at local restaurants and other eateries. Recommendations include to conduct outreach and coordination with restaurant owners, for the town to identify roles of public realm and private realm, including potential for public-private partnership. There's an opportunity for some of these places to have seating on private property, while others may not have that available. There's a possibility for them to use public property. In the lower right-hand corner, you see a photo of Leonard Street in Belmont, Massachusetts. They have taken a lane and removed a few parking spaces to generate a rather successful outdoor dining operation. And Project 10 is to conduct analysis to determine a funding source for the construction of town sewer infrastructure. So the observations is that there are very strong interest by business owners, property owners to increase sewer capacity to allow for other uses, whether it's a restaurant or a gym or a totally separate use. The recommendations include to continue the momentum built from recent studies and the purchase of the discharge site to analyze funding structures for sewer expansion. Absolutely important to include the study of packaged treatment plants as well, which is pictured here. Perform public outreach and solicit input. It's very important. And of course, seek support from public officials and business owners. I do want to point out that we believe wholeheartedly that this project could utilize ARPA money and other development money, hopefully coming down the pipeline. Those are the 10 projects that we have generated for Littleton. There is more detail in the report, which draft is available, and an additional draft could be circulated shortly. I'd like to take public comment, and I'd like to determine which of these projects, let's say which 3 or 4, are the highest priority for those who are on the call and those who would like to write in by email or however you'd like to do that after the call. On Friday, when we upload this information, it's required that we flag any that are high priority. It's our sense that we don't want to include every project as high priority. It's also our sense that it's non-binding. Just because you flag one as high priority doesn't mean another one can't get funded. It's just something that the state has asked us to do, and we'd like to work with you all to establish that priority. With that said, I'd like to either pass it to Marin or Joseph, or offer the opportunity for public comment.
Okay, thanks, Charles. If you could just go to the list of the 10 recommendations, if anyone would be interested in speaking or having any comments, if you could raise your hand, that way we can acknowledge you and invite you to speak. I do know that Marin, you had received some comments, I believe, from the Cultural Council regarding using the or increasing usage of the common for art programs or art exhibits as a way of driving interest and commerce to the area of the common. That was in some ways referenced in the comment for host more events on town common that Charles had mentioned.
Yes, we did get an email from Jeannie Bracken and supported by Kimberly Albertelli as well of the Cultural Council. Several ideas included decorating the green electric boxes around town, baskets of flowers or barrels of flowers along particularly Great Road. And they say, while the town supports Third Thursday and Oktoberfest at Fay Park, additional festivals, smaller festivals at the Common would be of interest. Sculptures, murals, other public art for the common area and throughout the center of the town would be eye-catching. And they also referenced successful art centers such as Emerson Umbrella in Concord. They are referenced also the loss of the Cannon Theater, used to be in Littleton. And they're just hoping overall the thriving arts and culture scene was cited as a major reason for Littleton's status as a best small town in Massachusetts, and Cultural Council is hoping to reclaim that.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that we could augment project 4, or we could generate a project number 11, either way.
Okay. Jean, I'm going to allow you to speak. If you can just restate your name and affiliation.
Hi, I'm Jean Bracken, a longtime resident. I live on King Street, and I'm the current chair of the Cultural Council. And I noticed that in item 4, quite a few of the things that I had sent to Maren today have already been incorporated, which I was really glad to see. I'm really concerned or hopeful that going forward, that the ARPA funds that are coming in, well, some of them will be used for cultural things as well. I don't think it's necessary on your list of projects is good. I don't see a need for an 11. I think that my suggestions and your suggestions work just fine together as part of 4. And I would like to see more things happen on the Common. Also, more benches around there, more places to sit, because there are lovely places there. But in particular, if there's a large event, there's not a lot of places to sit. Not that we're going to build a, stadium or anything, but as an older person who has to sit, I noticed that people don't walk that far because there's no place to sit when they get there. So overall, though, I think that a lot of these things have been a long time coming. And I'm not sure if you're looking at the outdoor dining opportunities as temporary or something that you're looking at as a long-term thing. I just particularly hope that going forward, the ARPA funds in particular, some of them can be set aside for cultural uses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean.
Thank you for that comment, Jean. I'm hopeful for those ARPA monies to be spent similarly. And I think that you'll find that when you view the report, there's even more in project number 4 that we received over email today. I do think we can make sure it is very reflective of what we received today, and that if you don't think we need a project 11, Joe and Maren, I support that.
Yeah, I'm happy to support Jean's recommendation now that number 4 has been fleshed out with requests from the Cultural Council. I think it looks good.
Are there any thoughts on priority?
So I think Charles, in sort of looking a little deeper into these, some of the feedback that you may have received from property owners and business owners may also help. Looking at the list, while there's a lot of things that, like we've talked about, I think one of the challenging things is because this DHCD, the state is looking for us to identify those some priorities. And again, it's not something that we are beholden to. I think there are some areas that may be of interest based on some of the comments that you received from business owners, and I think part of it has to do with providing support in general. That number one, engage business owners to make facade and building renovations as well as signage. And then even some of the streetscape improvements, those all get at trying to improve the built environment. The work on conducting analysis to fund construction of the sewer. Many of the business owners had identified sewer as integral, and that having that project go forward also gave them an idea as far as what they could do for improving their property. So I think there's some linkages that may make sense to sort of pull out three types of priorities revolving around the sewer, facade building, as well as wayfinding, so that we can try to have more cohesive destination signage and orient people around the common area. Maren, what would some of your thoughts end up being? And part of this is to also just spur a little bit of a conversation. And if anyone that is in attendance wanted to raise their hand and chime in, that would be welcome as well.
Yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of support for town sewer. I think, given the point we're at, exactly how the town is going to fund town sewer is a priority. I agree with Joe that it does blend well with engaging with number one, engaging the building owners to do facade and building improvements, things that definitely help the look and feel of Littleton Common will be the wayfinding and signage and streetscape improvements. To me, once those items are, I won't say done, but once those are moving forward, it makes it a little easier to do some of the other projects.
I'm hearing support for numbers 1, 2, 3, and 10. Some pretty robust support.
Yeah, especially as a follow-on to what we heard through the Littleton Common revitalization roadmap process. I think these flow from that as well.
And I should take an opportunity and remind everyone for 1 minute that we don't believe that it's binding, that just because one is flagged as high priority does not mean that it'll get automatically selected for funding over another. There's work to be done to move these things forward and obtain funding and get boots on the ground projects done. But we do have that sense that there's, between 2 and 4 would be a good number. This was all over email from DHCD, I believe. So happy to talk more about it, but it was slightly left to your own interpretation, if you will.
Thanks. We do have Kim from the Cultural Council raising her hand, so I'm going to elevate her to a panelist to speak.
Sorry, clicked twice too quickly. So I love what Jean had to say about the Cultural Commission. And the other thing that I see, the redesign of Goldsmith at Stephen Street. I've taught 3 kids to drive. And as we all know, that's like the most deadly place to try to get out of from Goldsmith and then try to navigate around. So is there any thought of just making that bottom part of Goldsmith be a one-way? So that just doesn't even come into play at that spot? Because I hear that other people think ahead of time to drive through the other neighborhoods, which I don't love. And I understand that those roads are not meant for that. But is there maybe, instead of thinking, let's cut the corner off, let's think about the bigger picture of that one? So I think that would be a great priority, and then find out from residents how to solve that, other than trying to make everybody in town come into that intersection and take their lives into their hands to try to make a left turn. The right turn's easier, which is bad enough, but the left turn is really tricky.
Any redesign would have a really significant study involved. It wouldn't just go straight to construction. So while we didn't analyze that very carefully as the project recommendation, having the project title of Redesign the Intersection would investigate additional alternatives.
All the things. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I think also, even if something doesn't end up being one of the top priorities, being referenced within the plan, identifying the issues, should the town want to work with the state, or even we have some advisory committees dealing with transportation that can sort of take a closer look, and especially as we move forward and potentially facilitating additional development in the common area, may necessitate elevating that intersection for more attention. Who knows? Maybe instead of a 4-way intersection, we could have a mini roundabout right in that location. That would be great for teaching high schoolers to drive as well.
You can go to Concord anytime. That's right. But you're right. That is a tough spot. And the more business that we want to bring there, which is what our business owners want to do, makes it be more challenging for people to get out of their car and, for example, to get to the pub, walk across that street when people are trying to navigate. It really is just an accident or 2 or 5 waiting to happen. So that's awesome that that's being prioritized. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback and your thoughts. Okay. Let's see. Basically, at least it doesn't sound like there's any opposition to what we discussed. And, like you said, Charles, it is something that as we go forward, it would be anticipated that we'd be able to change and reprioritize. And, as other initiatives also occur within town, we can, that may then shift some of the projects and what we concentrate on. Just a reminder as far as next steps, Charles, if you could reiterate that.
Sure. The next steps include to finalize the report, to submit the final plan to DHCD tomorrow or by the Friday deadline, and to prepare for grant funding opportunities in 2022. We have heard that there would be an opportunity for funding in January of 2022. We're not exactly sure what that is. There's also a tremendous wealth of funding resources in the appendix of the report. that we recommend that you look at carefully to determine if which project you would find most eligible for that funding source. They are broken down by the different types of projects: public realm, private realm, arts and culture, admin capacity. Those are the project types that they're broken down into. So it's a robust document, and we think that there's going to be ways to fund these projects in the future. Of course, the big one is ARPA money, which is coming. So that's something else to keep your eye on as well. If you have additional comments, please submit them by tomorrow. We need a little bit of time to cook them into the report and get it out the door. I am going to elevate numbers 1, 2, 3, and 10 to high priority, unless there's any backlash against that, which I'd be happy to discuss further. Both Joe and Maren, you know how to get a hold of me. Please CC Jeff. It's very important. And we'll look forward to getting this report out the door.
Okay, thank you very much. And for anyone that happens to see the video of this presentation over the next couple days, you are able to view the report by visiting the Town of Littleton's front page, and there'll be this link to the virtual public meeting final draft. And at the bottom of the page, we have a link to the draft plan for people to review. There was a lot of work that Beta Group had put into this. Some work that's being done under this local rapid recovery program across the whole state. We were fortunate to be one of the municipalities selected to participate in this program. And while it may have reaffirmed a number of previous projects or studies or recommendations, that's always beneficial to have that reiterated for local officials, state officials, because it shows the importance of specific items. So I know when we had the public forum, some comments were that, well, some of these look very similar. Just means we're on the right path, and that we have consensus moving forward, and then the priorities that these represent. So I'd encourage anyone, if you have any questions, to reach out to Maren or myself. And thank you, everyone, for joining, and thank you to Charles and Jeff, who is not here but put in significant work on this plan. Thank you for your assistance, and thank you, Maren, for assisting in this project as well.
Thank you both.
Okay, with that concludes the meeting and presentation, and thank you very much, and have a good night, everyone.